Milwaukee PBS is proud to present Next Avenue Community Conversations. Next Avenue is made possible with funding from the Helen Daniels Bader Fund, a Bader philanthropy, enhancing the quality of life of older adults.
Hello, I'm Mark Segrist. It's great to be with you on this special occasion. First of all, let me just tell you that the mission of our Next Avenue series is really quite simple: to share relevant information with our fellow baby boomers to help them during different times of day, different phases of their lives. At this point in time, how to deal with such things as housing or financing or healthcare, whatever. I think there's a name that's often referring to it. I believe the expression is something like the second phase of adulthood, which I think is kind of an interesting expression. So we thought it was very fitting to spend some time here at a real jewel in the Milwaukee community, the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center, right here in the heart of the city, because we thought it was very important to address what it's like to age within this very special culture. So that's our reason for being here, and we've been looking forward to it for some time. And we're joined here by the Director of Client Services for the LGBT Community Center, Reverend Deborah Trakel. She is a longtime Episcopal priest, social activist, and social outreach professional here in the greater community. I call her an apostle because she's one of my favorite clerics. How about a round of applause for Reverend Trakel? First of all, thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you're most welcome.
I feel very welcome here. And I think that is one of your themes, be yourself. What does that mean?
Well, here at the center, it means that whoever you are, however you are, that you should be able to be the most you possibly can, regardless of the age of life. So we have a youth program and we have an older adult program, and whatever stage of life you're at, you ought to be able to be completely who you are within our community. So that's what it means here at the center.
And that's such a wonderful theme, Reverend. Really, you could apply that to any walk of life. Be yourself,
yes.
Because that's when self-awareness begins, that's when acceptance begins.
Yep.
Yeah. When we talk about the LGBT center, and more particularly the culture as a whole, the greater culture, especially as it affects baby boomers, we're talking about a big tent. Folks from a lot of different walks of life, a great deal of diversity, folks at different stages of their life. Explain that to me. Help us better understand it.
So we talk, the words that we use, and you hear the acronym frequently, LGBTQ. So LG, lesbian, gay, references people who are attracted to people of the same gender. Mm-hmm. The B in LGBTQ, the B stands for bisexual, which is for folks who are attracted to either one of the two genders or yet another gender. The T stands for transgender, somebody who is affirming in themselves the gender that they identify with as opposed to that which they were assigned at birth. And Q, people always ask me these days, what does that Q mean? So Q means one of two things. It either means the word queer, which means I don't quite fit anywhere, or I fit in all of it, or it also means questioning. A lot of our youth use the word Q to talk about what their identity is, which is queer.
Right.
Having said that, you referenced the big tent. There's a word that we use which is intersectionality, which means that one can be LGBTQ, but also Black, African American, Hispanic, disabled in some way, hard of hearing, blind, may have other challenges, or older. And so when we talk about that huge rainbow-colored tent that is the LGBTQ community, it is absolutely, as you said, Mark, it is comprised of all those folks who are LGBTQ, but they also have other things that are part of their existence, their identities, like the older adults program. And,
so
and
we are truly, when you look at it from a broad sense, we are truly talking about one of the most diverse, one of the most complex cultures in America.
Yes, immensely complex.
And it's a culture that speaks with solidarity, and yet because it's so inclusive,
yes.
there are different opinions within that solidarity.
Sure.
And what is it like to be a part of that from an organizer point of view? I mean, especially here at the center, you have folks with a lot of different opinions and a lot of different viewpoints based upon at what stage of their journey they're in.
Yeah. Well, I think that we work hard at finding commonality because we understand that there's diversity within the LGBTQ community. So we work at finding things that we can do together, at coming together in large activities like Pride Fest, for example, or other activities here at the center that allow us to bridge those differences for the things that we share. Because the truth is that whether we are lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender or queer, we share more than we are different. And we know that. So we will look for opportunities to create those moments when we can share our commonalities.
And the common bond would be dignity, respect, ethics. I mean, that's the glue that holds the movement together, is it not?
Yeah, it would be the be yourself. It's why it is the motto of the LGBT Center here in Milwaukee, that that goal, that drive to allow everybody within the LGBTQ community and beyond, but within our community to be themselves, to be as fully themselves as they can in whatever context they're living in.
It's an interesting time in America for baby boomers, for boomers within this culture, to carry their baggage from previous decades, and I'm talking about in terms of not being accepted, doors closed, whether professionally, personally. It's a tough time to be a boomer right now. And what kinds of challenges within the LGBT culture are boomers most concerned with right now?
Well, many of the boomers were coming of age and coming out to themselves and or within the community at a time when they knew that to come out as lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender was going to create problems for them, was going to make it more difficult to hold a job or to get a job, was going to make housing more difficult, was perhaps going to make problems with their families. Perhaps they would be no longer accepted in their families. So because they came out at a time when it was absolutely clear to people that if they were going to come out, there was risk attendant to that. Over time, since, 1969 was the Stonewall riots in New York,
Yes.
which we would say is the beginning of the gay liberation movement. And so it's been a long time since 1969. 1969, I was a senior in high school.
Right.
And that's a long time ago. Between then and now, while it is true that the community and the culture at large has grown and changed and developed, nonetheless, there's still been a whole lot of stigma and discrimination and problems that population has had to deal with. So now, as they are aging, issues of poverty, issues of health care, access to health care, and treatment once they access health care, profound issues of isolation, and issues of the accumulation of trauma, of what happens when you live from 1969 to 2017, and you, over all that time, have experienced various degrees of trauma, either large trauma like physical or sexual assault, or the little microaggressions of everyday living that accumulate over time.
And how does one overcome that?
Well, I don't know that you overcome it.
Yeah.
As much as you manage it, as much as you learn to live into it, live with it, live alongside other people. So when we talk about specifically, for example, issues of isolation, large issue in the LGBTQ community, We have places like the center where people can come and drop in and be absolutely assured that when they are here, they are not just going to be tolerated or accepted, they are going to be celebrated precisely because of who they are. So around issues of isolation, we hope that, and we work to create, those of us who are activists in the LGBT community, to create places and spaces where people can go and find community and not be isolated. Certainly, some of our religious institutions, back in 1969, there were very few churches that were celebratory of the lives of gays and lesbians, or transgender folks or bisexual folks. And now that's not true, that there are many places where people can go and participate in a church service and have that community. We talk within the LGBT community about chosen families. For many of us, our families of origin were marginally accepting, or some of our members of our family were accepting and others weren't. And so we create families of ourselves. I mean, if you look out here, I can see different people who are affiliated not by biology, but by bonds of love and care and concern and caretaking. And those family systems are as tight and as important as are the biological families that other folks are privileged to have.
Housing is one of the key issues, key challenges, especially when one is in a marriage or partnership. That is when it's taken to another level. Explain that to us.
Did you say housing?
Housing, yeah. Whether it be a nursing home in
Right.
later years of one's life, whether it be, being escorted by a realtor, looking at different homes in a community. It seems to me once you're in a partnership that it gets even more complicated because then people really begin to scrutinize.
Yeah. So housing and housing discrimination, we like to think that we've gone beyond that, but we know that there are still, in terms of rental properties, for example, if you're going with your partner, or the rental agent discovers that you are part of the LGBTQ community, find reasons to not rent to you. Not particularly unlike other parts of our community, but certainly that is true for our community. It is also true in terms of institutional care, which you touched on lightly, Mark.
Yeah.
That people who have maybe been out for 20 to 25 years, even 30 years, they've been out to their friends, they've been out to their family carefully. They've been out, they may have paid a price for it, but they have been out. They'll go into now an institutionalized setting, go back into the closet and slam that door shut because they are afraid that they will be poorly treated. Mm-hmm. And we have lots of experience knowing that that is exactly what does happen in many cases in terms of our skilled nursing facilities and our assisted living facilities. So housing, not just as we age, but housing for the lifespan of somebody who's LGBTQ is an issue that we need to take into
When one is
consideration.
looking at a retirement community, what is the best way to decipher just how receptive this place is?
Yeah. Well, the most elderly housing complexes have managers and people who are responsible for handling the building and the management of the property. And so asking some basic questions like, do you have other people here who are lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender? Mm-hmm. What do you think about them? How might you refer to them? What language would you use? And I understand that those are questions that are probably pretty threatening. So as a consequence, we end up in situations that are not necessarily good for us.
But it's better to know it now than before you sign up for a place.
Well,
I mean, you encourage people to be
for
that
sure,
direct and
yeah.
that inquisitive.
For sure.
What about healthcare? When one is finding a doctor, a baby boomer from the LGBT community, seeking healthcare, seeking a relationship with a physician ongoing, overall, how receptive is healthcare right now to this culture? How comfortable are care providers, healthcare providers,
Wow,
with this
that
culture?
is such a great question. We do, here at the center, we do way over 100 trainings a year in the area of cultural competence, because it is essential that if I'm 64, if I go to a doctor, that my doctor knows that I'm lesbian, knows my orientation status, because I am female, knows that I'm what we would say cisgender female. In other words, I affirm the gender that I was assigned at birth, and that my healthcare provider absolutely knows that, and doesn't ask me stupid questions like, so why do I care about your sexual orientation? Why does that matter to me? Because it does matter in terms of things that are specific about being a lesbian,
Right.
as is true about being a gay male, as is true about being transgender, as is true about being bisexual. We know that as it relates to healthcare and aging, that our aging population is disproportionately has a disproportionate cardiovascular risk, has a disproportionate diabetic risk, has a disproportionate depression risk, has a disproportionate risk behavioral risk. In other words, we are more inclined to be still smoking or drinking too much alcohol.
Right.
So all of that, we know, the research tells us that the LGBTQ population has those risks, and as a consequence, it is absolutely relevant that I'm a lesbian, or that I'm a gay male, or that I'm transgender, or that I'm bisexual. And my healthcare provider ought to know that, know how to talk to me, know how to be with me, and also know what my risks are.
Yeah. And that relationship is so important.
It's crucial.
It's all about trust. It's all
Yes.
about trust. I'd like to throw in some questions. We've got a great audience here today. I'm so happy everyone's here. That's great. What is life like for transgender older adults? Is an audience member is asking you, Reverend.
Yeah, no, I guess it depends upon the transgender older adult. And it also depends upon when they are transitioning. So, for anybody who is transgender, life is challenging. We know we're taping today, last week, 5 transgender women across our country were killed because they were transgender. So if you are transgender and you are older, you already have the issues of aging that are your challenges, that everybody has, of disability perhaps, or an aging body, or access to healthcare. But if you're transgender, then you deal with the stigma of a society that doesn't yet understand who you are and what your needs are, and asks questions that we wouldn't ask anybody else, but we feel like we have a right to ask if somebody is transgender. So
Now, you've been in counseling for all of your ministry, and now you're specializing in counseling within this special culture. How do you know when someone has what it takes to make that major decision in his or her life? To cross that bridge, a desire to do it is one thing, but to have the tools to make that transition may be something entirely different. Does everybody have what it takes to do that?
Mark, I think that it's hard to tell for anybody if they're up for the changes that might be coming in their lives. What I would say is that people who come saying that they believe themselves to be the identity that they believe themselves to be, that they experience themselves to be, that they have experienced themselves to be for a very long time, I believe them, because it's hard to say that. It's hard to know that you will take on additional challenges. Transgender, take the trans out for just a minute. Gender is about my genetics, it's about my hormones, it's about my brain structure, and it's about genitals. It's about those 4 together.
Right.
And so for me, when I was, when I was born and the doctor lifted up the baby and looked at it and said, oh, yeah, that's a girl.
Right.
So my experience of myself as a woman is consistent with that. So I'm cisgender. For most folks that are transgender, the doctor looked at that baby, made a decision about what that baby was at birth, and now they're at a different point in their life and they're saying, that doesn't fit for me, that is not what I am. Because the thing that the doctor looked at was the only thing that the doctor could see, and there's a whole lot more that creates gender than just what the doctor could see.
Yeah.
And so, how do you help someone make that decision? The process of transitioning is challenging, and so you want to be sure that the person is internally safe
Yeah.
to be able to do that and ask good questions. But honestly, if somebody tells me that they are the gender that they believe themselves to be, I believe them because they know, and I don't. I'm not living inside their bodies.
That inner voice is,
And those voices,
saying something.
if you are transgender, are clear. They're clarion, which is why somebody...
do you hear it again and again, or does the degree of those voices change based on the client you're counseling?
Well, you hear different ways in which it is expressed per client.
But there's
you
a
know.
consistency
But
in
there is
terms
an
of
absolute
expression.
consistency in terms of people being clear that this is who they are.
The human condition is fascinating, and it's complicated.
And complex.
And we
Yes.
walk around the face of the earth, regardless of where we are in life, inheriting the qualities of our mother, our father. We really are a mixture of gender to begin with, are we not?
Well, yeah.
In a
I guess
sense?
that'd be one way to put it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, here we go with another question. What programs and services does the LGBT Center offer for older adults? You've got, among other things, you've got a very powerful intergenerational mentor program here, don't you? That is really helpful.
We have a variety of programs that we have available here. We do have an intergenerational program that's a whole lot of fun. You know, we get our kids together, we get our youth, our older adults together, and just have them talk. And the older adults have a lot to say to the youth in terms of what has it meant to them to grow up LGBT. But beyond that, we also have a very large support group that meets on Wednesday nights. We have a drop-in center. We have a food pantry because many of our older adults are very poor and they need the assistance of food.
Folks have been held back professionally, personally, all sorts of ways, and that contributes to that condition, does it not?
Yep. By the time, you know, when you've been held back professionally your whole life, or you haven't had the support of marriage where you have two incomes, or because you've been held back professionally, now you're older and your Social Security is not as high as somebody else's might be.
Right.
Well, all the different ways in which a lifetime of discrimination results by the time you are older in financial difficulties.
Yeah.
So we have a clothing closet here where people can go and get sweaters and coats and things that they might need. We have a dining club, we have a book club, you know, we have a variety of ways to look at issues of isolation and issues of poverty and ways to support people, to create community, to create chosen families,
Yeah.
which gets at issues of isolation and also helps ameliorate some of the problems of poverty and healthcare. And
Everybody needs that.
yes, they do.
That's the human nature, absolutely. Does any Milwaukee-based helping agency have plans to develop a list of LGBT-friendly, independent residential facilities? That's a powerful question.
Is there any place in Milwaukee?
Is there something in the works? Yeah.
That, you know, a wise person said that the answer to that question is not yet. And the answer, and that's the answer.
You know what, though, Reverend, knowing you, I'm sure you're working on it.
That's the answer. Yeah. That is the answer, not yet. But you know, the Milwaukee County Department on Aging is very aware of the issues of the LGBT population.
And that's a blessing in
And
this
that is
community,
an
is it not?
absolute blessing.
Yeah.
You know, we work hand in glove with
Yeah.
MCDA, and I am quite sure that MCDA will partner with us to come up with just exactly that kind of a list. And also, we do training to create more places that are safe for people who are LGBTQ.
Here's another good question for you. What can we do as a community as a whole to support LGBTQ elders? Elders, yeah. What can we do?
Well, there's the large policy issues that we all can be supportive of. The Older Americans Act is, we believe, probably going to be coming under fire. And so we can certainly be aware that that's true and that will affect all older adults, but it will also affect LGBTQ adults. There's a designation of a special population that one can be given within the Older Adults, Older Americans Act, which can pull more funds to specialized groups. And we sure would love to see within the LGBTQ community that special designation being given to us as part of the Older Americans Act. So that's one thing we can, write letters and send postcards and all the things that people are doing right now. But beyond that, probably the most important thing that we can do besides giving money is being alert to the people in our community who are LGBTQ who might very likely are isolated.
Yeah,
And
just reach out.
Spend time, reach out, spend time. If you're going to church, take them with you.
Absolutely.
if you're LGBTQ and you're coming down to the center, take them with you.
Reverend,
Take the time to put them in the car and take them with you.
I've enjoyed our chat.
I have
think
too.
Reverend deserves that. Reverend Trakel. Thanks for reaching out to us. It's been a pleasure being with you. And we hope you enjoy our next edition of Next Avenue Community Conversations. Take care. Thank you, folks. We enjoyed it.